and welcome to Let's Talk Procurement, the only show you, yes you, need to master the art of procurement. Let's go.
The yes you's back. And what was funny about... Sorry, someone's looking at me weirdly. What was funny about that was you started talking in slow motion, and all of a sudden you just sped up. So it looked like you were doing some sort of rapid mouth movements.
I've been watching the Olympics, and I'm quite into the commentary that they're doing. And obviously, it gets more exciting towards the finish line, so they speed up a little bit. And I think that's kind of transitioned into the way I'm now podcasting. So, what I would love to do is introduce you beautiful listeners to the Procurement Gods and Goddesses series.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm.
You may be wondering what that is. Well, Luke 10, the CEO of Segmentation, CEO of Segi, has been busy segmenting things. And he's come up with an incredible idea for a series where we being Luke 1 and Luke 10, go and find some procurement pinnacles, some absolute legends, icons, people who have completed the game. You know, the Didier Drogba's of procurement, the Mo Farah of procurement, you know, those unbelievable icons. People that we just got so much respect and time for. And then we asked them how they did it.
And we strategically compile all those insights into succinct and efficient episodes delivered straight to your inbox and straight into your ear.
We do love inserting knowledge into your ear, that's correct. And I think we also learnt that when we're asking these procurement icons for their time, they don't have a lot of it. So we take what time we can get. So in order to do that, we came up with as Luke said, a succinct list of questions that we feel will help you on your procurement journey. And we put them to the experts. And then we see what they produce. So before we introduce you to today's guest, let's have a look at our bulletin. So first of all, on the bulletin, well, it's not on the bulletin, it's just a question. How the bloody hell are you, mate? It's been a while.
I'm good. I am currently recording in the car, which is a bit of a weird one. I needed some boxed off studio space, and I thought it would be great because it's, you know, fairly hot day, stick the aircon on, sit in the car, be nice and enclosed, private, chilled. But what actually happened is there's a load of people driving past and looking at me weirdly, and when I turn the aircon on, I'm scared that it's interfering with the mic, so it ends up
roasting.
I'm just roasting and people are looking at me weirdly. I'm sweating profusely.
And where's the car parked? Assuming it's parked and you're not driving while recording a podcast.
Yeah, I'm on the M1, mate, looking at all these warehouses from the KFC episode. No, it is parked. It's parked on the driveway, which is even better because people that are looking at me weirdly are all the neighbours and
all the people that get to know you.
Yeah, all the people that I will see multiple times.
Fantastic. Well,
and what about yourself? I'm going to reciprocate the question. How are you?
Thank you. No, that's the first time someone's asked me that this week, and it's Friday, so you know I'm very happy with that. It's been a good week. It's been slightly busy. I did actually get an anonymous package. Ooh. Yes. Well, are you going to ask me what that anonymous package was?
No, because I know you're going to tell me anyway.
Oh, right. We'll just leave that to the next episode then.
Cliffhanger.
No, so I'll show you, and you can describe it to the listeners. Honestly, not how you described my background in a previous episode.
What that is it seems to be the top of those cans of fizzy drink, but you know, a whole box of them. And the box is about 8 foot wide, 9 foot deep, and 1 foot tall, contained with lid flicking widgets, which we love to procure. How did I do? Do I need to get my eyesight tested?
Terrible description, yeah, and I don't think you should be behind the wheel of a car ever again if that's what you see. No, it's actually a microphone. So somebody has sent me a microphone with no description of that being sent, who it's from, kind of what the situation is. My good lady said to me, well, maybe someone's kind of hinting that your audio's shit on the podcast, and you need to give it a bit of an upgrade.
So, but that person knows your address.
Well, yeah, that's the bit that's thrown me off a little bit.
Interesting.
Yeah, so if the anonymous package sender is listening, reach out to us. I'd love to say thank you. And also kind of find out how you got my address.
And move away immediately.
Yes. So, yeah, that was my anonymous package. Anyway, moving on to today's procurement god/goddess/icon. I will let you do a little intro because you are the one who sourced said person.
Yeah, so today's guest is Caitlin. She works in the public sector, so that kind of helped us to mix up we've interviewed a couple of people in the private sector. Now I've got someone in the public sector. It was really great to have her on the podcast. Me and Caitlin used to work together.
Connections.
We started our apprenticeship, commercial procurement and supply chain management was the apprenticeship. And since then, my career's kind of faded a little bit, gone down the drain, and hers has risen. And she's risen to dizzying heights within our organisation. So yeah, it was great. It was great to get her on the podcast. Apart from the fact that I basically constantly got roasted for about an hour between Luke 1 and Caitlin. But yeah, she's a natural at podcasting and
Absolutely.
got a lot of really good insight into the profession as a whole, has worked in different elements. So what you're saying is your haircut isn't the only thing that's faded. I'm glad you noticed. I need to procure a new barber now I've moved house.
Well, that sounds like a whole new episode.
So before we get on to the cracking content, we just wanted to send a quick thank you note. We got some fan mail, didn't we?
We did on our OnlyFans page. Is that what it's called?
No, I'm not talking about that fan mail. I'm talking about fan mail about the podcast.
Oh yeah, love it. On our tech service. What did the message say?
It said, really like this podcast. Starting SIPS level 4 soon. It's very interesting and funny, brackets mostly funny. Well, some bits made me smile. I think that's quite an accurate review, to be honest.
It actually did, yeah. So I have to apologise because before I actually clicked on the message, it said it's very interesting. And it said, well, some bits mad. And you have to click into it to see the full extent of the fan mail. So I thought they were just calling us mad. Evidently not. I mean, look, whoever that was, thank you. Obviously, all fan mail is appreciated. And next time, leave your name so we can roast you, or thank you, even better. Anyway, enjoy this one, guys. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. Let us know your thoughts. Don't forget to drop us an email. The link is in the description. But just in case you like hearing Luke 10 say it, the email address is
2lukes1sip@gmail.com. Yes, the number 2, Luke's plural, the number 1,
so good,
cip@gmail.com.
Oh, it just gets better every time. I love hearing that. Right, so if you're in the car, put your seatbelt on. If not, sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode. And we'll see you on the other side.
See you in a bit.
See you later. So, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for your time and thank you for joining us. It is much appreciated. I guess we'll start. So we would have introduced you a little bit earlier, but would you like to just give us your name and your current role, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Caitlin. I'm the current head of contracts and operations at a large public sector organisation.
Very nice. How long have you been doing that for?
is, so public sector I've been in for 4 years. I've been doing procurement for 9 years.
Yeah.
So I started in the private sector, moved into public, and I've only been in this role for 2 months.
And when you were a young one, this is completely not on the questions we agreed. Did you kind of dream of being a procurement professional? Was that like your?
I say this all the
goal?
time. I don't know any kids who say, when I grow up, I want to work in procurement. That's just
We're going to change that.
Yeah, that's not something that people give you as an option. And I don't know anybody who's in the procurement career who hasn't fallen into it face first. You just end up in procurement.
You're making that sound like a negative. You said fall there as opposed to jumping into procurement with passion.
It's a fall upwards, but I do feel like I've fallen upwards. Every time I've gotten a new job or I've taken a promotion, it's been a fall upwards. And it's been lovely and successful, but that doesn't mean that it didn't feel like for a moment I was in midair just floating.
I like that. Right, Luke 10, do you want to answer the next question? Have you actually prepared?
What question are we on? So professional. So how did you get into procurement then?
Well, she fell into it.
Yeah,
Apart
like I
from
say,
falling in.
I
Yeah.
fell into it. So I was halfway through my A-levels. So I did my first year of my A-levels and I thought, I hate this. I hated every moment of it. I wasn't enjoying it in any way, shape or form. And I knew I wanted to go on and get more education, but doing it at school, so I was in a sixth form college, just wasn't working. So I left school, had one long summer holidays, and then
Amazing.
the last one, I knew it would be the last one, the last proper summer holiday, so I took that. And then I started an apprenticeship, and I literally just applied for lots of apprenticeships. And my first one was a level 2 business admin for a university. And level 2 business admin mostly covers how to write an email, how to receive and answer post.
Tough stuff.
How to write letters. It was really, really interesting stuff. But in that role, they asked me to raise and process purchase orders. So I started raising, processing purchase orders. That 3-way match, that was all me.
Yeah.
In an office at 17. Just no idea what I'm doing, but I'm 3-way matching stuff. That goods receipt looks a lot like that invoice, that looks a lot like that purchase order. So that's that's how I started in procurement. After a year of that, past my apprenticeship, I went and worked in a private company, and I worked in the catering industry, so providing restaurants to really big names like Nando's and Wagamama's and people like that, who you can include because I'm not going to say what the company was. So I did everything for that company because less than 50 people worked for the whole company. So
the perks of working for an SME, right?
Yeah,
you get that exposure.
You learn everything in an SME. So I did finance, I did commercial, I did raise the purchase orders. When I started there, it was a bit of everything. And then I ran the service desk for a little while. So taking complaints from customers and dealing with broken fryers and ovens and chefs who are very upset, and chefs can be quite intense people.
They're passionate, aren't they, about their work, and if something goes wrong.
Incredibly.
Yeah. Were any of the complaints like, not fair complaints, kind of just a bit stupid?
Oh, often. So I would get phone calls and say, if you don't get me an engineer here in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to have you fired and I'm going to sue you personally for every person I can't get into this restaurant. And chefs could be so intense about it.
Wow.
And the worst ones would be ones where they'd invested their own money into their own restaurant and they were the head chef, and everything they had their whole life resided in the ability of a mid-range fryer that they'd bought. Their whole life just relied on the ability to make chips, and if you didn't get them the ability to make chips, they were going to absolutely lose their mind. So it wasn't always easy in the service desk, and that's part of why I moved into commercial.
Yeah.
And negotiated all of our yearly discounts, because that's how it worked, is you had set catalogue prices, but you would negotiate annually what percentage discount you would get with the suppliers. And that was my favourite part, is sitting down with suppliers and getting to really negotiate and get into the weeds of it. So that's how I got into proper procurement.
The actual procurement stuff, kind of. Yeah, I like that. So your apprenticeship gave you that, like, dipping your feet in, kind of getting a bit of experience. And I guess nothing else that you were doing kind of stood out as being more excited than the three-way matching, and then one thing led to another.
Yeah.
No, that's brilliant. I mean, what would you say has been your most useful skill behind the kind of, success that you've had in your career so far? What would you say to other people?
So I talked to my team a lot about this recently, about saying yes to opportunities and not being kind of frightened of that. So the thing that I do the most is, if an opportunity comes up and someone says in a meeting, could somebody look at this? Could somebody try this? And it's outside of that day-to-day role, just say yes.
Just give it a go.
Just give everything a go, try anything out, because that's those extras, those side bits beyond day-to-day work is what builds your capability as a procurement professional. And being able to say that you've done something other than, you can say, I procured this contract, I procured that contract. And that's not that interesting, because that's what we all do day to day. Doesn't add a lot of value. So being able to find the value add outside of that and saying yes to those opportunities is the best thing you can do.
Yeah, I agree with that as well, because it feels like some people, if you just say, I sign a company up to contracts, they think, those are just the boring T's and C's that you skip past and click agree to. So it's definitely a new element, which is good. So why would you say that people should start a career in procurement? Obviously you've been able to kind of climb the ladder and get to see different parts of a business. What things would you say about the best reasons to start a career?
Yeah, and I think it depends where you want your career. So I started in private sector, like I say, and in private sector I got to travel quite a lot for work. So I went to Milan, I went to Hamburg, did lots of interesting things and traveling and going to different conferences all over, and that was fantastic. So procurement can take you anywhere. You can do procurement anywhere. But the thing that I really enjoy about public sector is that my job is protecting kind of public money. So I get to say I protect public money, and I really enjoy that. So when I worked in private sector, the money that I made, particularly for an SME, wasn't always going towards achieving anything.
Yeah.
But the money I protect now does, and delivering a public service is quite satisfying. Now, it doesn't work for everyone. I will say procurement offers many opportunities to climb the ladder, which I've been able to do. Quite some of it's luck, some of it's skill, some of it's opportunity that's out there. And it's interesting. No 2 days are the same in procurement.
Absolutely, you can say that again. No 2 days are the same. But that's what I like about it. Actually, I tried dipping my feet in some other roles, and for me, it was that every day is probably just as crazy as the last, and you just don't know what to expect. And when you kind of mentioned earlier the word commercial, in a public sector environment, is commercial the term for procurement?
I've done a lot of work on commercial versus procurement. So commercial is the whole life cycle. So you're talking way before you start thinking about letting a contract. What do you need? What's the outcome you're trying to get to? What's the problem you're trying to solve? So you start with that, define a requirement. What do you actually need? Yep. Procurement is the part of that where you buy the thing.
Yeah.
And then the end of it is that contract management, which is what I specialize in now, is if you buy the perfect contract, you put in place the perfect contract, and you don't contract manage it, none of the things that you said you were going to do with that contract will happen. They all just float away on the wind. Yes. Where it doesn't happen. So you've put in some really good social value, or you've managed to get some really good efficiencies into a contract. If that's not managed day to day, it runs away with itself. So that commercial for me is all three parts of it, and procurement is the buying and the contract bit. Not to say that bit isn't important and really value add, and that bit sometimes takes up a lot of the time and energy, but you've got to include all three for me to be commercial.
To be fair,
so on the back of that, do you think we need to change our podcast name to Let's Talk Commercial?
It's not as snappy maybe, but it definitely covers all three parts, because that's a big movement, I think, actually everywhere in procurement and commercial. I mean, if you look at SIPs, they call it procurement and supply.
Yeah.
That's the known industry term.
I think what's interesting is from the private sector perspective. So commercial is something slightly different, but it kind of makes sense in both both situations. So in a private company, a commercial manager is someone who's looking after the customer.
Yeah.
So they are looking after the needs of the customer, and in some instances that will be the government body that is issuing the contract. So my commercial counterpart would be looking after the prime contract, and then I would be responsible for all of the, I guess, the subcontracts and kind of going to market, finding those, doing the specifications and everything that goes with it. Still having that control over the procurement life cycle, but with a procurement title. I guess we all just get hung up on titles a little bit, to be fair, but there are a number of titles that can all roll up into procurement or commercial or to supply chain or to category management or buying or logistics. So they all kind of wrap up eventually.
Yeah, you can slice and dice it 1,000 different ways and say that these are all different types of procurement roles, but they are all procurement roles. They're all contributing to that cycle in some way, shape or form. It's just where you put them and where you sit them. I think even in different public sector departments, you come across different ways of doing that. So most public sector, because Cabinet Office specify it, work in category management, but those categories vary wildly, and that's not adopted in every public department either.
Sounds like you could benefit from some kind of consistency being put across the government departments, but doesn't seem to happen quite a lot, does it? Everyone's kind of doing their own things.
It's hard because every department's trying to deliver something different. So every department's got a very different view of their role. So that's the wider department. And commercial are an enabling function. So they enable the business to be able to do what they're trying to do. So the model's got to a certain extent to fit to the strategic values of the organisation, but it also has to fit to the strategic values of government commercial function, because we're all part of that. So almost no matter what you do in commercial and government, you have strategic drift, where you either don't fit the strategy of the organisation or you don't fit the strategy of government commercial. So you have to pick and choose and find what works for that department. And that's quite a difficult thing to do. It's actually what I wrote my MSIPS dissertation on.
Oh, wow. Is it published? Are you showing it out to the wider audience?
Not yet. So I'm still waiting for my results because it could be rubbish.
I'm sure it's not, don't worry.
The topic's good. So the topic was talking about, so we do a lot of things in my current organisation around service-led. So that's service design, essentially, making sure that everything you do as an organisation is focused around what your customer needs, and not what you perceive them to need, but what they actually genuinely need. And commercial as a function isn't built with that principle in mind necessarily. So when you try and apply that, how do you apply that to a commercial department? And in doing my dissertation, there's actually no research on it. There's no research on how you implement service design to commercial. Yeah.
Wow. I guess it's probably the same with most supporting functions, isn't it? I guess if you did the same for kind of like internal legal support and things like that, kind of wouldn't be appropriate or enough research. That sounds like a headache.
It was. I was quite upset with myself that I'd set that as my dissertation title. I did it quite early on thinking, yeah, this will be great, I'll have loads to write about, and then there was almost too much to write about because it's such a broad idea that it was hard to narrow down for 10,000 words.
I think what was, I don't know why this just came into my head, but I think it was really interesting that you've done your apprenticeship as well, because I think it could have been a dissertation topic, but it's not. But has the apprenticeship route enabled you to get further in procurement than somebody who hasn't done an apprenticeship and maybe gone to university and then joined? And I know if someone's gone through that route, they might come in at probably a higher level than an apprentice does, but in the 3 years it's taken them to get their degree, you've already climbed up the ladder, hopefully to a similar level or a higher level. And I think the value of apprenticeships is definitely getting more and more noticed at the moment. I don't know if you agree, but I do feel there's a lot of benefit in them.
Yeah, so I'm a huge advocate for apprenticeships. I've done talks at events about apprenticeships and about how we need to make them part of our day-to-day lives in procurement and commercial functions. I think you get there faster. So I did get one promotion about halfway through my first apprenticeship, but I would say that you start at a certain level in an apprenticeship and you finish at the next level up. So by the time you finish that apprenticeship, you are ready for promotion. You should be asking for promotion. You should be getting there. But I think you get there. So when people talk about me, I'm quite young for being the level that I'm at. I'm under 30, so being where I am at under 30 is
Congratulations.
unusual. Yeah, thank you. It's a very odd place to be. But if you talked about me as if I had gone to university, so I'd finished my A-levels, I'd gotten to 18, I'd done, 4 years of university, I'd be 22, and then I would have started my career. So you add the 9 years that I've been working in some sort of commercial procurement role, well, I'm well over 30. I'm into my 30s, and that's the right place to be. So you have to almost act as if I'm 5 years older than I am, because I've spent 5 years that other people spent getting drunk at uni. In a procurement job, and the best part about apprenticeships that I've talked about before is your mates are all at uni and they've got no money and they've got no car and they are going out as early as possible while drinking at home for as long as possible and then going out for all of the deals, and then that's all they can do, and you're there at 18 and you work a full-time job and you've got the money and you've got the car, and it feels quite nice to get there faster than other people do.
Instead of drinking at university, you're getting paid by the supplier who wants to supply you the cheapest price, spend it all on alcohol, try and woo you. Is that how it works in public sector now?
No, not often, but I will say private sector's more prone to let's go out for a beer and discuss the contract, because obviously we can't do that, we're not allowed. So even if I wanted to meet up with you guys and have a pint, I would have to be so careful that if you bought me a pint, have I bought you a pint in return? Am I going to put this on a gifts and hospitality register? Am I going to say that you guys work there and I work here, but actually that's not in any relation to it? It's a minefield. But when I worked in private sector, I would, come home at Christmas with a basket full of wine that suppliers had given me at the end of the year, because that's how
the good old hampers.
Yeah, exactly. Christmas hampers were the best part of working in procurement at Christmas. Was just everything else has gone to pot because it's the end of the year and everyone's panicking and they need stuff in before you hit Christmas. But at least you get a massive hamper of like cheese, biscuits and wine at the end of the day.
Yeah, I remember when I was probably like 3 months into my first ever procurement kind of role, and one of the preferred suppliers at the company at the time basically said, "Oh, we've got a box at the O2, and we're going to see." I can't remember who it was. It was someone like Snoop Dogg or something random like that. Like, do you want to come along? And I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I didn't have any business going along with them. But they were just like, "Do you like this person?" And I was like, "Yeah, he's a good artist." But I just didn't do it because obviously I value my career more than Snoop.
That's a bold move to prioritise it that way around, because it's hard. It is really hard when you get into, particularly if you've been in private sector where the rules are a little bit looser. I mean, not that they should always be much looser, and it does depend on the company. When you move from that to moving into public sector where it's really, really strict, and it's right that it's strict. Yeah. I'm operating under taxpayer money every day. So, if I, as a taxpayer, realised that somebody was going out and using public money to go out on a lash,
to have a good time.
I would be pissed. I'd be so mad about that. You can't operate in that way, and you shouldn't operate in that way. And you kind of have to remind civil servants sometimes that they're taxpayers. So imagine that's your money. That's how it's being spent. So it's right that it works that way, but it's really difficult realm to move into if you're not used to it.
I do think as well, salesmen have got a bit wiser to it. They kind of know that procurement might not be authorised to go and have a good time, so they target other people in the business. Maybe people who aren't as kind of strong on the whole anti-bribery stuff, and next thing you know, they're having a state lunch in central London or whatever.
That's the one. That's the one. Is just they try and find the person who isn't sure. And I talked a bit. I did a conference some time ago and talked a bit about how I think there's a temptation for somebody in the business, an owner of a requirement. They get sold something. So they go to a dinner or a conference and they meet a guy who tells them, "I found this piece of software that's going to answer every wish you've ever had." And then they go back to their department or their organisation and they turn to their procurement person and they go, "I found this amazing thing. It's incredible. It does everything I've ever wanted it to do." And their procurement person says, No, can't do it. Not allowed. Won't do that. And that's wrong from both parties. So procurement people can't just say no to operational needs of an organisation. They have to figure out what's the need and what's the right
missing.
route to get to market for that need. But also businesses need to start taking their procurement people on that journey from day dot and saying, right, I'm going to go to a conference, come with me, let's find out what's out in the market, and then together we can plan our market strategy for figuring out what's the gap and what are we trying to fill and what do we need.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's where you get into the discussion about, are you specifying a brand because someone's got in there early and said, you know, they've made the requirement only suitable for their company, or are you actually thinking about what are we going to deliver and what do we need versus that? So we've gone massively off topic.
As we do.
I blame you too. But the next question that we planned was, what advice would you give to your younger self on your first day in procurement?
My first day in procurement, like I say, it's an odd one.
Or even first day of your business admin apprenticeship.
Well, first day of my business admin apprenticeship, it's not school. That change from school to work when you don't go to uni in the middle, I think that's quite hard. I think that's a learning curve of, particularly because I struggled with my A-levels, of going to work. You have to come and be there every day and actually put effort into everything you're doing. And no one's forcing you to be there, but you do have to be there and put lots of effort in. And I think if I managed myself at 17, I'd want to strangle her because she just couldn't figure out how to be in a work environment. And I think it's something that we should introduce for every 17, 18, 19-year-old that's just gone into a workplace of what's the difference between work and school and how do you get there? Because it took me the full year.
You know what's crazy though? Well, I personally think it's crazy is the extra 2 hours. So like school finishes at 3:30, right? And at the time, that is a long day. Like there's no question. As a kid, you find that a long day and you can't wait to get home. And then all of a sudden, you've had your summer break, you go into work and it's an extra 2 hours, 9 till 5:30, right? You've got a lunch break that is like timed and you're not running around like lunatics in a playground or doing whatever you're doing, you know, like having a quick game of football on your lunch break. And you're just expected to be a complete professional. And I mean,
yeah,
my first few months in my first job, I was exhausted because I was just, you know, didn't know what to do. So yeah, maybe that's an area you can go into and teach people.
Yeah, how do you be a person in the workplace? Because you're not an adult. You don't know how to do that yet. I don't care how old you are. When you come out of uni or you come out of school and you go into a workplace, you don't know how to behave as an adult in a workplace. And like you say, it's so tiring. Even when I've gone from, I worked a job that was 7 hours and then moved to a job that was 8 hours, and I thought that'll be easy breezy, won't matter. I was so tired. I was like getting the bus home from work. It was before I could drive, so I'd get an hour-long bus into work, then I'd work 8 hours, then get an hour-long bus home, and I would get in. I still live with my parents, and I would get in and have to have a little nap before I had my tea because I was just so tired at the end of the day. And you think it's such an odd juxtaposition of being a working professional, a young professional, and then coming in and having a little nippy nap before you have your tea that somebody else made you. It's a really weird place to be. I think I really feel for people who are quite young, still living at home, but also trying to be a working professional.
Got to be done though.
The only way to do it. I think that's how you start out. That's how you learn. You learn through failure, don't you? You realise the first few times that you come back late off your lunch because you'd walked into town and gone for a Taco Bell and then gone shopping, which are things that I did do on my first job and did on my lunch hour, and then come back late and all of a sudden you're in loads of trouble, and that really matters now. It's not just a teacher yelling at you. This matters. What you do matters, and it impacts somebody other than yourself.
I like that. I just looking at the questions. We've got one last question, or maybe two. The second, if the last one actually counts as a question. I do have another one I want to sneak in if that's okay. But
that's fine.
In your opinion, is SIPS worth it?
I have had days where SIPS did not feel worth it. Certain parts of SIPS didn't feel worth it. I've had days where I thought, I am doing this for the sake of getting a qualification so that I can get paid more. There are days where you think, this is about the money. This is about
it's all about the money.
Yeah. However, now that I'm moving into the kind of job I'm in now, so someone asked me what's the strategic direction you're going to take with this supplier? I actually have an understanding of what they mean by that, other than just business nonsense that people say. that makes sense to me. I have that understanding of where do I place this supplier in importance to us? Where do they place us in importance to them? Makes a huge difference to how I structure the governance for that contract. That actually means something to me now. And I think if I hadn't done SIPs, it wouldn't have had as much perspective.
Okay, that was really interesting. So we did a collab in another episode. I'll put a link in the description if any of you listeners haven't checked it out. But there's essentially a couple of gentlemen who are, it always sounds really bad to say out loud, but kind of more experienced in their careers in terms of, they've been in procurement 30, maybe 40 years, and they've never done SIPs, and they actually are quite passionate about SIPs not actually adding any value to competency. So it's quite interesting to see, and I think maybe if they had gone through it, they might have a different perspective. But I guess everyone's opinion is valid. It's just different situations we're faced in.
I don't think we need SIPs. I don't think we need it. That's one of the things to say. I don't think a procurement professional who doesn't have it can't add value. I think it helps people get there faster. So it's like I talked about with an apprenticeship. You can get there through experience, through working your way up.
Yeah.
But it's a boost. It's a helping hand that gives you a perspective and an understanding of wider than just what you do.
So does an accountant need ACA or CIMA?
Yes.
So that's my argument, that I think someone in procurement should have SIPs, but I agree that SIPs is lacking in what a professional body needs compared to like the likes of CIMA and ACA. They're getting there, but the fact that they're still teaching everybody about warehouse layouts suggests that they're kind of missing the mark.
I think generally, actually, procurement don't. So if you ask somebody in finance a question and they tell you the answer, you accept that answer as the truth, right? You know that. So if you go to finance and say, can I do this? And they say no, you know the answer's no. When someone comes to us and says, can I do this? And we say no, do they accept that answer?
No, they go and find another route, or try to.
And that's about respect for the profession as a profession, because it doesn't matter how old we talk about procurement being, because this isn't a new function. I mean, when you study SIPs, you go and look at millions of books from really old dudes who have written about this since the 50s. But it's still not the same level of respect and necessity in an organisation as fine. You're always going to have a chief finance officer.
Yeah.
Are you always going to have a chief procurement officer? No.
Really?
No. You should, because it will add a lot of benefit and value, but you don't.
Yeah. And in organisations I've worked for, they've been rolled together, where you have somebody who is your chief finance and chief procurement officer, and is a kind of conflict of interest of you can't spend and save the money in both ways. You can't be both persons. So you have to divide that out. And I think it demonstrates an organisation's commitment to procurement as a function and the value of procurement as a function when they have a director or a senior representation that is solely dedicated to that function.
I guess it's easier in the public sector and also in the large companies environments, but when it's an SME and they've got a limited budget, they need their CFO to make sure that they can look after their pennies, right? So you kind of understand it from that perspective. Hopefully it will change one day.
From what I've seen, it seems to be the kind of manufacturing or companies that what they buy directly impacts the profit. So maybe goods procurement, which links to the question I wanted to ask, another one that's not on the list. So you've done goods procurement and services procurement. What do you think are the differences? Which do you prefer? Yeah, give us your thoughts on that.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, the principles are the same. The principles are the same whether you're procuring goods or services. The thing I find with services is that you cannot separate the person providing it from the service you receive. That's really difficult to do. So people get attached to the person providing the service when sometimes actually what they're attached to is the service itself, and vice versa. They get attached to a service and they say, I need this service, when actually what they need is the person delivering it. And if they were to pick that service up from somebody else, it wouldn't do what they needed. Whereas with goods, often when you know what you need from the goods, it's easier to do that output specification. Whereas when you're doing services, it's much more tempting to say, I know I need this person and their service to deliver what I need, because they're inseparable.
So, are you loyal to your hairdresser?
Oh, bad question for me. Yes, I am. My best friend is my hairdresser.
Oh,
but
okay.
Also, if I pull other things, so the lady that does my nails has been doing my nails for 6 years. When she went on maternity leave, I stayed at her salon, went to somebody else in her salon, and then when she came back off maternity leave, I went straight back to her. She's my nail lady. She's my nail girl.
Yeah.
And I have that loyalty. Are there other trained nail techs in my area? Yes. I actually have nail techs that are closer and cheaper. I like my nail tech because she does what I need her to do.
Yeah, it's like Luke with his haircut. He pays a lot of money for that thing, and nobody really understands it. But I mean, he goes like 3 times a week and pays a lot of money to a Turkish man for that, and he's just incredibly loyal.
You know what they say about dentists have bad teeth and builders have their houses built badly? Well, it's the same with procurement and paying for things. We always get bad value in our personal lives.
I think you do it so much at work. Like, if I was trying to get a quote for something and someone was like, oh, are you going to get 3 quotes? No, I did that all day. Get lost. I'm not doing 3 quotes for my builder. I don't have that in me. So I finish work and I do turn off. So I finish work, and if someone asks me to do something that requires any kind of professionalism, I'm like, you're going to have to ask me between the hours of 9 and 5, Monday to Friday, because that's when my brain works, and the rest of the time it doesn't.
So you're overpaying for your stuff in your personal life.
100%.
You're just going, I haven't got time to do due diligence.
Yeah, I am paying problems away in my personal life. Like, if it means that I can be slightly lazier, I'm just paying that away, because sometimes you just have to take, a little bit of time for yourself away from our professional lives. So what's interesting is the interview question when I interviewed for my second apprenticeship that I did at the organisation I'm with now. The interview question was because they wanted someone who wasn't from an experienced procurement background, they wanted new people. They asked us, how would you shop for a new phone contract?
A new phone contract?
So that's how they were trying to find out whether we had some commercial nous. What kind of commercial knowledge do we have in our natural day-to-day lives that would make us good at procurement? And that's my answer was absolutely right as to what one should do when they shop for a new phone contract.
Not what you did do.
Not what I actually did.
Yeah.
Is that a secret that you're only revealing years later?
Yeah, I mean, we're a good 4 and a bit years on. I'm in a different role. I definitely didn't answer. What I did do when I relet my phone contract was, it's with the same person. It's probably fine. I can afford it, and I'm too lazy to do anything else about it. That's fine. But actually, that does happen in procurement, doesn't it? Where we've done a bit of a cost-benefit analysis. How much effort is it going to take us to change this over from what we do now? And if it's too much effort, we do decide sometimes not to do it, and that's a legitimate decision to make in a procurement process.
There is risk in moving stuff, though.
Yeah.
There is risk in moving suppliers. It's not as simple, especially with software and things like that. It's not as simple as just switching phones, right?
Yeah.
The question I had for you, you mentioned earlier about this lovely diverse panel that you're looking at and talking to. How is it being, and this is an assumption, it's not an assumption, how is it being a female in procurement, and how have you experienced anything that you think would have been different if you were a male?
So it's different for every person, and I think it has changed massively. So I can only talk about my individual experience, but I know that people have had massively different experiences in this. So I'm going to kind of caveat the start of my answer with that. I think being young has been just as impactful as being a woman, and both combined have made sometimes it particularly difficult. But I've said this to my team recently, it sometimes becomes a bit of a secret weapon when you walk into a room and someone has, and this has happened to me, assumed that I'm the receptionist or assumed that I'm the person there to bring them a coffee. That has happened to me with suppliers. where
Sorry, I'm actually gobsmacked at that.
yeah,
That's ridiculous.
So I happened to be the person near the door when a supplier rang the doorbell. And he came in, he's like, hi love, I'm here to see the procurement manager. Let them know I'll be downstairs. And I'm like, I kind of stood there wide-eyed, gasping. And I kind of wanted to do a little spin on the spot and say, you're talking to her, but you just can't, you can't do it that way. And so I just kind of was like, if you're wanting to speak to the commercial team leader, that would be me.
Bit of sass though. I saw your face change. A little bit of sass.
It was just, I mean, you have to give a bit of sass. You need to remind these people. But there's weird things, and I think I used to be more bothered about this when I was younger. So, like I said, I'm not old. But when I was 18 and I wanted to go into a negotiation, suppliers would come in suited and booted. So I would pick where we were going to have the conversation to suit me. So we had, our boardroom had like bar stools and like a bar height table, and I'd never go there because there's nothing less professional than clambering up on a big table because I'm short. That doesn't look good. And so being a young woman, that puts me in the off immediately. I also used to wear massively high heels to work so that I wasn't looking up at these blokes who'd come for negotiation. But like I say,
but how high are we talking here though?
I'd wear a good 4-inch heel to work because I'm not a tall person. So in order to actually look somebody, you have to be wearing fairly high professional heels to work.
Professional ones, not
professional heels. But I'm not talking about wearing pleasers to work. I'm talking about put on a good pair of court shoes so that you're at eye height with someone, because looking up is not necessarily the best thing you can do. But you can make it a weapon. So when you walk into a negotiation and the first thing the supplier has done is underestimate you, you're already sitting in a great seat. You're already knowing full well that they think you don't know what you're talking about. And when you point out really early on, and that's the thing, you do have to know what you're talking about. You do have to prove yourself harder. But when you prove that you do, they're on the back foot. They're uncomfortable with the assumptions that they've made. Yeah. And you give yourself the ability to control the narrative. So it can be a secret superpower if you know how to use it, but not everybody does, and nobody's taught it.
Okay, no, that's good. It's turning it into a positive spin as well, isn't it? Because obviously, I think we all face our own challenges in different environments, and I mean, Luke 10 gets roasted all the time for being a baby in our office, as in not acting like a baby, as in being extremely young. And I think it's because we forget. So the year he was born was the year of a very, very well-known world event, right? And a lot of, well, basically everybody else who works in the same team remembers that event. So to then hear that he was being born that same day is kind of, I guess it's probably hurting them quite a little bit, because it's reminding them how much time's kind of moved on a bit. But nonetheless, it is something that he does face. I know we say it goes in one ear and out the other with you, but it could be something that you kind of do take to heart, right? Or something that you could turn to your advantage in a negotiation situation. So I think we do all have our challenges, and it's interesting, and it's good to see more women getting involved in procurement. I've certainly noticed a shift in that. Looking at the older generations of procurement professionals, they all seem to be very similar in attributes, and it's definitely changing for the positive.
It's nice to see it happening. Young women taking this career path that affords a lot of opportunities and what's traditionally been quite a male-dominated industry. And I think as long as the supply market kind of keeps up with that in all industries, because I think sometimes there is the temptation to still send the car salesman, and that individual does not know how to interact. That kind of stereotypical car salesman.
Yep.
Slimy.
Does not know. Yeah, just gross. Doesn't know how to interact with a young woman in a position of power over them. They lose all ability to function properly. It's embarrassing, and companies need to keep up with that.
It's weird, because I used to be a car salesman and I didn't have that.
Didn't have the greasy salesman.
I never used to be a car salesman. I just wanted to see if you'd feel bad for saying that. I know what you mean. She was
thinking, I absolutely saw that from the start. Slimy bastard.
I'll send over a list of cars that I've got for sale in a minute. No, that's been really good. And Luke, did you have one more question?
I did, but that sort of felt like a good place to stop. So maybe we cut this one into earlier in the sort of interview. So it was just about category management versus sector alignment.
Yep.
Have you worked in both, did you say?
Not really. So I do category management now. So I work with categories that align with Cabinet Office. Where I worked previously, it was customer alignment. So we would split it, but they're all types of category management, right? So like I say, you can slice and dice it however you want, but they're all types of category management. And again, I talked about this in my dissertation a little bit, that deciding that you're basing it on your customers or the sector is a type of category management, because all category management is dividing up your areas of spend. And whether you do that because of the type of spend or the type of customer or the sector that you're procuring in is still category management, and those same benefits and drawbacks are still going to apply. So your benefits are going to be that you're going to understand your area really, really well, and your drawback's always going to be that you're too siloed and you don't understand what's happening outside of your area of expertise.
Is there almost an argument to say, we'll just sort of do like every time a project comes along, we'll just give it to the next person in order? Or would that be too chaotic?
Oh, chaotic. And I think, people have been writing about category management and how to split up procurement, like I say, since the 50s. People are always going to kind of theorise what's the best way of doing things. As I think I've mentioned, doing that based on your organisation is the right thing to do. So what are you trying to achieve as an organisation? So you could pick a user journey. So trying to think of a good example. So if I'm Aldi.
I've got one.
No.
When you have a can, can of Coke, the little thing on the top that the
little tip
the lid flicking widget.
Yeah. So
I want to procure that.
But that's kind of the wrong thing to focus on. That's how I'm trying to get commercial departments to understand, right? You're not buying the little lid flicky thing. You're buying the customer journey of buying, opening, and drinking a can of Coke.
Yes.
Right? That's your customer journey. So your customer journey is, I want to drink pop. So what you buy should focus on the full customer journey of buying, drinking, and then disposing of your can of pop.
So he wants to buy the lid flicking widget because everybody who's ever made a can of drink has used the lid flicking widget before?
Yeah. He thinks that's the right method, the lid flicking widget. I don't like that we're calling that. Is that the official name?
Yeah.
Yeah, the lid flicking widget, yeah. I mean, what else would you call it?
The tab? Is that not what it's called?
It's not as interesting though.
Yeah.
I think it is a tab. The lid flicking widget might be how you decide to market your version of it.
That could be the solution. Yeah.
Patent that. I think that's going far, lid flicking widget.
Thank you.
bit of reframing it there, I like that.
I'm really good at that, reframing the answer.
You are. That's why you're good in negotiations, I can tell. Because reframing is like one of the most important skills you can have.
Absolutely. I said this. I went into a talk in leadership for women. And so I'd done a leadership for women course a few years ago. And they asked me to come back as, look, now you're in leadership. Look, you're our success story. And I said, yeah, happy to do that. So I went in and the lineup was the CEO and the director for HR and the finance director. And I messaged the organizer and said, have you lost the plot? Why have you put me on a lineup of all the directors when I'm just not? This is before I was in my current position and I'm still nowhere near that post. I said, why have you put me there? That's ridiculous. I'm going to look like such an idiot because they're going to talk about all the amazing things they've done over their illustrious careers. And here I am, just this kid. And that's how I felt. And actually, they asked me to talk about imposter syndrome. And so I said, I've got a great example of imposter syndrome. Here I am on this lineup, and the first person to talk had been our CEO. So I said to her, the only way I can reframe this, I'm really sorry, is that I'm going to have to ask you to be my support act today. And there was this brief moment of silence where I thought, I might get fired for that statement that I've just called my CEO a supporting act. And then she just threw her head back and she cackled, and I had this wave of relief where I was like, oh, okay, good. She thought that was funny, and it was a really risky move, but that's reframing the situation that you're in so that you feel better about it. Sometimes it's fake it till you make it.
I love it. So you got the job through forwarding your interview answers, and then you faked it till you made it.
Yeah, and then I laughed at my CEO. So how I've gotten to where I am is it's
incredible. It's incredible. No, fair play to you. We've all got to take a leaf out of that book. If you had to place a bet on when Luke 10 will get his SIPS qualification, what year do you think it will be, or what month and year would you say?
I like this. Is there a prize if I get this right? I think if you're going to ask a few people this, you should put forward a prize.
I think that's a great idea. As long as there's not the option of never can't be an option.
No, and never isn't an option, Luke 10, as I say this to you. There is no option of never. Get it done. How nice am I going to be? I think this is a bit like when you have a baby shower and you guess when the baby's going to be born and how chubby they're going to be. So
everyone's
I
all
say
conservative, and you want to come in with like 15 pounds.
Yeah, and you want to be like, this is going to be the biggest baby ever, and the mother's looking at you with this look of like outright panic. So knowing where you are in the process now.
And sorry, just to fill you in, do you know that he has changed his journey from the exams to the essays?
Yes, I do know that.
Okay,
That's the route. That's the route I did, was the advanced practitioner route. If we're going to use the SIPS terminologies, is advanced practitioner, and I know that you've gone to that route, so that's going to be a little bit shorter if you're successful. And motivated. And Luke 10 and I don't mind saying, did our level 4 SIPs together.
Oh, okay.
So I know Luke. I've got the inside track on his motivation for SIPS work. So I'm going to say 2 years to the day today, we'll be able to talk about Luke 10 having achieved his MSIPs, his chartered status.
Brilliant. And for reference to anyone listening, that's the 2nd of August 2026 that we're looking at Luke 10 having his SIPS qualification.
If I get that right, I desperately want a prize.
We will sort a prize, maybe a signed sock or something from Luke.
Ooh, you could have gone for a T-shirt or something. That would have been.
I guess the bit
boxes.
His sock is quite famous because he has a botch microphone and he puts a sock over it because he thinks it looks more professional, like the one you can see me holding.
Yeah, okay, I can do a mic sock as long as we're quite specific. So yeah, I'm making my specification real clear on this.
We'll make it a mic sock, not any other type of sock that he may have.
Yeah, perfect.
And that could be the prize. To be honest, if other participants aren't keen on that, we might have to throw in something like some chocolates or something nicer as well.
Why do other participants get something nice and I get a mic sock?
Just to encourage them to participate, right?
You would just do it for the bands at the moment.
I'm just here for the laughs. I'm always quite happy to mock Luke.
Brilliant excuse. I knew you two would get along well because you just love to sit there and take the piss out of me. So I've enjoyed it.
Natural from the start. Been a pleasure.
This is like being a ref. Everyone's taking the piss out of me anyway. So.
Oh, you just have to get it in there, doesn't it? God, how long did that take? What are we on? 1 hour exactly, and he manages to drop that into conversation.
I know. Probably hasn't got his cards out yet. Well, look, thank you so much for your time, Caitlin. It's been much appreciated, and I'm sure our listeners will gain a lot from your wonderful insights. If they do have any questions, we'll maybe put them to you and see if we can get back to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you both for having me. I do want to say I think what you're doing is really good. It's nice, as I've said, that we need to get the reputation of procurement out there, and that's what you're doing. And hopefully, I wish the best of success to you in it.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much.
What a good way to end.
Thank you.
Love it. Right, we'll see you later.
Go. Use my soundbite there. Thanks very much.